Today, you're going to learn the 12 rules for my life that have made me more successful and more disciplined. Hi, this is Craig Ballantyne from Early to Rise Radio, and I'm here with Galel Fajardo, one of the head coaches in our program, and he is going to interrogate me on my 12 rules and how they've changed over the last 15 years. Galel, let's get started, my man.
All right, so in the book, page 111, you share an article that you wrote Easter Sunday of 2011.
Yeah, 15 years ago, basically.
15 years ago, right? And you said that this is basically an operating system for the way that you live your life. I have to add a personal note. This was the inspiration for my book that I'm currently writing.
Tell me more.
So my book, the working title is Write Your Own Rules to Live a World-Class Life.
Nice.
And this right here was the linchpin for me to realize that I was living kind of like a ping pong, like a pinball, right? In a pinball machine. And that I needed to have rules that I abide by in order to keep myself on the path to where I want to go. And so my book kind of incorporates my lessons in having you craft rules for different parts of your life.
Okay.
So this was a very impactful piece that you wrote.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And so let's just dive right in. So rule number 1 that you have on here, I go to bed and get up at the same time 7 days per week, 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. respectively. I stick to my diet, avoid caffeine after 1 p.m. and avoid alcohol within 3 hours of bedtime. Note, Craig quit drinking alcohol in 2021. Is that still your rule?
Oh, absolutely. And so, all the rules, I think 99% of them are the exact same. And so this one is very important because for years before I wrote these rules, I had heard from my mentor, Mark Ford, who wrote his books under the name Michael Masterson. He had always said, go to bed at the same time every night and get up at the same time every day. And I resisted it for so long. But when I finally did it in my late 20s, I did it for about 3 weeks long in the wintertime. There wasn't much going on in my social life. And so I was like, okay, I'll finally try this out. And when I did it, I swear that this had the greatest contribution to all-day energy levels, more than eating well, more than exercising. It was the absolute best. And what I learned later is that humans are meant to have routine. And in Matthew Walker, who wrote the book Why We Sleep, it's probably like one of the most popular books on sleep ever. He has 12 commandments at the back of the book about sleep. And he says if you can only stick with one, it's go to bed at the same time every night and get up at the same time every day, because your body is meant to do that. So for me, over the years, even though we have 3 kids under 3 now, and people even said when you get married, no one will ever want to go to bed as early as you. And sure enough, I found a woman who not only wanted to go to bed as early as me, but even earlier. And so sometimes we would go to bed at 7 o'clock at night, and she gets like 95 on her Oura ring.
It's mind-blowing.
Even though she does everything wrong. She will eat before bed. She will have a Monster at like 4 in the afternoon. She will scroll on her phone and play Dr. Google for like an hour. And then when she falls asleep, she'll still sleep perfectly. So she sleeps longer than I do. But I go to bed, now... In the wintertime, we go to bed about 7, but now that it's really sunny in Vancouver, and it's like sunny till like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, so we go to bed about 8, and I get up. I don't use an alarm anymore, but I get up around 3:30, just because over 15 years of getting up at the same time, I naturally get up, and then I go to work. And so, yeah, that one is the exact same, and all the other stuff applies, and it's just one of the most basic foundational rules for being able to be consistent, having all-day energy, and not feel like you're rushing around in the morning because you didn't go to bed on time, so you got up late, and then all of a sudden the rest of the day goes downhill.
Okay, so inevitably somebody's going to ask this question, so I'm going to ask it for you, okay? Craig, but what about when you take your family on vacation to Hawaii? Are you still going to go to bed and wake up at the same time?
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And so, when... The weird thing is, like, sometimes, we're all in the same hotel room, and so I will just go into the bathroom in the morning and I'll either play on my phone, like work on my phone. Sometimes I'll leave, but I don't like leaving the room because it's really loud, the doors in a hotel. But sometimes I will leave the room. But most of the time I'll just go in the bathroom with my laptop and work in the bathroom until they start getting up. But yeah, absolutely, 100%. We always are going to stick to it because the kids also need the routine. Any early childhood development expert will tell you that kids are meant to have routine. They're meant to go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, eat at the same time, and nap at the same time. So I'm not going to ruin that for them.
Yeah. And having raised a couple kids myself, I will attest to the importance of routines. It's not their personality. It is the personality of the parent getting them to adapt. So I wholeheartily agree. Second rule, I write for at least 60 minutes first thing every morning. Is that still the case?
Yeah. And have I violated it a few times? I'm sure. But in most cases, I was actually doing the math on this, for the last 22 years, since about 2003, on a conservative basis, I have written 500 words on 80% of the days. So that's about 7,500 days. So I've written about 5 million words in that morning time, minimum, probably more. But that's a conservative estimate that I have pressed the space bar 5 million times after finishing the word that I've written. So I still do it. That's how I write the books. That's how I write YouTube scripts. That's how I write video sales letter scripts, Facebook ads, newsletters to our clients, emails to our list. That all gets done at that time of day because that's my best writing time.
Outstanding. Rule number 3, I do not check email before 9 a.m. and I do not talk on the phone unless it is a scheduled interview or conference call.
So the first part of that is not true anymore. Now, the second part is I hardly do any phone calls or calls at all. The first part, though, is that over the years of telling people that I don't check my email and I don't get back to them, I don't get a lot of email. I'll usually wake up in the morning with literally 4 emails, and 2 of them are Amazon about, your Amazon order has been shipped, or, it's my wife ordered something on her Amazon account while I was sleeping. So I don't get email. So it's not actually a problem for me if I open it up in the morning. And also, now I'm a little bit more of a manager schedule than a maker schedule. So when I wrote this, it was almost entirely maker schedule. A maker schedule means you don't have meetings, you don't have to, reply to people. But now that, the business is a lot different than what I was running in 2011. And so the business is less about info products, it's more about coaching. And so there are some responses that people need a little bit earlier. And so, yeah, I definitely do check email earlier in the day, but it's not a rabbit hole like it used to be.
So to be clear on this, you write first, then you get to your email.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I always make sure I win that morning.
Yeah, great. Rule number 4, and I can attest that this is in actuality, I act polite and courteous, and I do not swear.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this, if somebody wants to swear around me, I don't care. This is more of a personal challenge to me. It was something that I quit in 2011. And, I was running intervals in the woods one day, and I thought, I tell people to do all this stuff, and, I got this bad habit of swearing. But I also noticed that I had never sworn in front of my mother, and I never swore when I was on stage, even back then. And obviously I can control this. So yeah, I swear like a sailor around my friends, but what's the point? And nobody notices it. The only reason people know I don't swear is because I have to bring it up. But if I sat in a room with people for 3 days and talked to them for 8 hours a day, no one would ever say oh, I notice you don't swear. Because nobody notices, nobody cares. And so it was a personal challenge back then, and I stick to it now.
I have to kind of latch onto this a little bit. So what was the linchpin for you to decide to put that aside? Because it sounds like it was around the same time you decided to quit drinking alcohol, 2021, I think it was?
So in 2011...
2011
was when I quit
That's
swearing.
right, because you wrote it in here, yeah.
So it was just random thought one day. It had nothing to do with anything else. It's totally that I tell people, my newsletters are all about, here's how to improve your life. And, I should take my own advice. But it had absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. All right, rule number 5. I create a to-do list at the start and end of every workday and update my daily gratitude and achievement journal.
Yeah, I don't do the gratitude and achievement journal anymore, but I do the to-do lists. I know what I'm doing. We're recording this in April. I know what I'm doing on, August 31st. At 2:00 in the afternoon, I already know what I'm doing. So, because all my days look the same, and it's just a matter of exactly what am I writing about, or exactly who am I speaking to at this time of the day. But my days, from 4 until 6, I write. 6 till 8 are kids. 8 till 11. I work on growing the business. 11 to 1, I go to the gym and eat lunch. 1 till 3:30 or 4, I do podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever. That's my day every single day, 5 days a week. And then half day on Saturday, and then I do the morning writing on Sunday.
So with you not doing your daily gratitude journaling, is gratitude still a part of your life?
Yeah. So the first thing I do when I wake up is I will lie in bed for like 5 or 10 minutes and thank God for everything in my life, and I'll just go through all the people, my family, and it reminds me like, hey, everything's great. I've got everything I need, which means if I've got everything, then my only purpose here is to go and help other people. So that just gets my mind right, and it takes me like 5 minutes, and that's what I do.
Love that.
The gratitude journaling, back when I used to do it, we have an ETR gratitude journal, and there's a section of like, who are you thankful for? And I remember I would fill that thing. I would like write in tiny little font, and I'd put like 25 people a day in. And that just was very, very helpful for like the couple of years that I did it, because it just reminded me like, life is really about all the people and experiences you have, and I was just blessed with an abundance of people, and also that I wanted to fill that up with new people all the time. So the gratitude journaling and achievement journal was very beneficial. I will say it became a little cumbersome after a while.
Yeah. So this next one I chuckle at, because I'm starting to see this more and more as, my profile, I start, posting more, things like that. And for you, this is like piece of cake, and that is, I do not engage in confrontations with anyone in person or online. This is a waste of time and energy. If I have caused harm, I apologize and fix the situation, and then I take a deep breath, relax, breathe out, and refocus my efforts back on my work and goals. Is that still the case?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of things just don't matter. And so at the time we're recording this, like everybody's talking about Trump and tariffs and stuff, and like my mother is a country music fan, loves country music, and wants to go to the Grand Ole Opry this year for the 100th anniversary. But she's considering not going because she doesn't like Trump. Like, it's mind-boggling that she would punish herself, and then she would punish the people of Nashville and punish the people of the Grand Ole Opry because she doesn't like what some guy says on TV and whether or not any of this stuff is really going to happen, and so on and so forth. And I just don't bother with that. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to Miami next week, so I'm not going to go to America. I like, if you don't want to go to America, fine, but I'm going to America, and I don't really care. And it's just so much energy that people put into this stuff, and it's like, oh well, and then they start talking about, well, is anybody at Costco across the border, because we live in Vancouver, and it's like, now we got to talk about how many people are in the parking lot at Costco in Vancouver. It's like, none of this matters. None of this stuff matters, and it stops people from achieving great things. So this is not an example of the dark side of discipline where it's a good thing getting in the way of the great thing. It's a bad thing, the gossiping and the talking about stuff that is outside of your control, and the worrying and the anger and the upset stuff. And it's just not a contribution to a better place. So as much as I want, sometimes I got a real snarky comment here, I should post this one. Like, I did this yesterday. I actually deleted the comment. It was like popped up on my Instagram. It was like this lady, Therapy with Lainey, and she was like, here are all these things that are good but don't really help, sort of thing. And it was like all these meditations, like, yeah, it might be helpful, sound bowl stuff, and the anger of the people who were like sound bowl fans. And I was like, I wanted to comment and write, just here to laugh at all the angry people who meditate all the time. Because it just makes no sense, right? That they love these sound bowl things, and they're such an angry person. But I deleted the comment because it didn't serve me, because It was stupid. And I got sucked into a moment of weakness where I even thought about posting it, but it just didn't serve the bigger picture. So yeah, I mean, it's hard work doing that, but you have to build the systems. The accountability to it is probably what, because I didn't want anybody to see that comment. Right. But also, I just have this kind of overarching theme that's not in the 12 rules, but it's just, if it's not doing something good, then just don't do it. Yeah. Yeah. I've shared with you my issues with impulsivity, being an ADHD person. And it's like the biggest form of restraint for me is to write out this nasty comment and then just delete it all. Yeah. Right. Or, same thing, writing an angry email and just deleting it instead of, those things are like really like you're really walking a fine line, because what if you accidentally like fat thumb it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can delete your comment, but emails hard to get back.
But yeah, bad news. All right, rule number 7. I am guided by these 2 phrases.
Are we on 7 already?
We're on number 7 already.
Okay.
Yes. Number 6 was no confrontations with anyone. So number 7 is I'm guided by these 2 phrases. A, nothing matters. I can only work towards my big goals and my vision of helping others, while the opinions of others do not matter.
Sure.
B is it will all be over soon. Everything, both good and bad, comes to an end. I must enjoy the good while it lasts and persevere through the bad until I have beaten it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so absolutely. So we talked about the first one already, that nothing matters. And if you think about everything in your life, what has really, really mattered? And this is why I don't watch pro sports anymore, because I mean, I like sporting activities, but I mean, who won the Stanley Cup 3 years ago? No idea.
Tell you. Yeah.
Like, I don't even know who won the World Series last year. Don't tell me. But not knowing this stuff, and I don't know who won the Super Bowl this year, and I don't know who won the Super Bowl last year, because it doesn't matter. And putting all this energy and effort into that stuff, forget about it. And then it goes with like arguing with people and all this sort of stuff. And then the second thing is like is much more important, is that these good times that you're going through, you really need to be grateful for them. And then any bad time, you're going to get through it. Yeah, like you have no other choice. Like what are you going to do? Quit? No, you're not going to quit. And so you just have to show up every day. You have to work towards the positivity. You have to work towards the solution. You have to ask for help. You have to go get a coach or a mentor. You have to get connected with the tribe. You have to do all these things, because you're going to get out of it, because there is lots of people who have been in a worse situation than you and have gotten out of that situation faster than you. So remember that always. And that's the encouragement that you need to get going and taking action.
It's a very poignant one. This it will all be over soon. Everything good and bad comes to an end. I think you were a fan of the show The Office. My son and I watched The Office. And there was a quote in the final season, one of the final episodes. Andy Bernard says, "Don't you wish there was a way to know that you were in the good old days back when you actually were in them?" And this is that reminder that, like, right now, like another quote that I quote of yours is, you prayed for this.
Yeah.
Like, you prayed for this.
Yeah, remember the days you prayed for this.
Yeah, remember the days you prayed for this.
Yeah, I think it's human nature to never to be as appreciative as we can be, and people will always look back and reflect more fondly on the past than it may have been.
Yeah,
like take a look at like how people like actually applaud past presidents.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Like, didn't you hate him?
Yeah, you hated him before.
Now you're cheering for him.
Yeah,
it's so strange.
Yeah. All right, number 8. Everything that happens to me, good and bad, is my personal responsibility. I blame no one but myself. These are the choices I've made. This is the life I'm living. I accept the consequences of my actions.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say it's easy to follow this one. I do my best, the best that I can, but I'm human, and sometimes I want to, would love for it to be somebody else's fault, but it is my own fault. So this then, if you agree to it, then you start making your decisions with a little more thought.
How do you catch yourself when this rule starts to get violated? Like, is there anything that you kind of use to check yourself? Like, when you start, like, do you start like mentally spiraling and letting this thing go, and then you go, hold on a second, this is my responsibility?
I think that if I mentally start blaming somebody else, I just remember, like, as soon as it's done mentally, and if I make the mistake verbally of blaming somebody else, then as soon as it's done, I immediately feel it. And it's like, I feel not great because of like, I blamed others. And, I might still like sit there and want to blame others, but eventually I just like have to accept that even if you could blame another person, what's done is done, and now you got to fix it.
Yeah. Rule number 9, I will help 10 million men and women transform their lives.
Yeah, this is something that I'm still after. The documentation of this is always difficult, but it's the idea, I suppose, of helping a lot of people to make positive changes in their life. And so everything I do in the business is around that. When I wrote this originally, most of my business was in the fitness industry, and it was around body transformations and stuff like that. So a little easier to document, but I don't know how I would put the numbers on it. but it is the driving source of the work.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up on this. So if there were a transformation that you would wish to happen for entrepreneurs, give it any number, just millions of entrepreneurs, what would that change be?
I would say that it would be probably around how they work in their business. So, most entrepreneurs work in the business doing too much stuff. They're overwhelmed. And even if I didn't increase their income, but allowed them to have more time, that would probably be like the documentation. Now it's easy. It's not easier, but you can see numbers on a bank account, so it's a little bit more objective, I suppose, than the time thing. But it's really frustrating to see, a lot of people working way too hard for the money that they're making. And so even if we didn't change the money first, like eventually we want to change the money side of things, but changing first of all, like how you're working in the business so that you have more free time, you have more time for your health, more time for your family. That would be the first place that I'd want to start with somebody.
Love that. Rule number 10. I will not be the person I don't want to be. I will not be petty, jealous, envious, or give in to any other of those lazy emotions. I will not gossip or speak badly of others, no matter who I am with or what environment I am in. I will not be negative when it is easier to be positive. I will not hurt others when it is possible to help. I will know the temptations, situations, and environments in life that I must avoid, and I will, in fact, avoid them, even if it means loosening relationships with others who live in those environments. It's my life, and that matters more than what other people think of me.
I think I've already violated this rule in the podcast, with my story about my mom. I wonder if I've been negative, but hopefully not. And so, it's when I wrote this, there was no Instagram. And, I didn't start Instagram until 2019. Now it's harder to stick to this rule with social media, I think, than when it wasn't around, because, I judge every single reel that comes up. This is stupid. It's like, I don't know if that's just humans or that's just me or whatever, but it's hard to stick to it. So the thing to do is what we've talked about a lot, is like remove the stimulus so that you don't have the reaction, and shift my mindset. And again, like not comment negatively on things, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody's doing something that I think is stupid. It doesn't affect my life. And if somebody that's rich that I didn't like wasn't rich, like that wouldn't make my life any better. I think that's one thing that's very important for people to understand, is that, if you leave a negative comment, it doesn't make your life better. If you are envious or jealous, it doesn't make your life better if the other person lost what they had. They still, you still have what you have, and if somebody loses something, you don't gain it. So I think that's something very important. And again, it's like I'm a human person and I have my own faults and stuff, and that's why I wrote these rules, is to try and keep myself on track.
Yeah, no, I love that. Number 11. I will always keep the child within me alive. Now, you wrote this in 2011, so before you had 3 kids.
Yeah.
I said, credit to Frank McKinney. I will make time to laugh and play every day. So,
well, yeah, I mean, so I had the dogs, and then I even made sure I was like watching 5 minutes of comedy on Netflix or something like that, so that there was always some of that, because otherwise, people take life too serious, and it's easy to take life serious if you're always working, which, at that time I was working a lot more.
How do you keep the child within you alive today?
Oh gosh, like it's all day child alive. With
Peppa Pig.
Oh, I'm carrying around a Captain America doll right now, making funny videos for my kids. And Peppa's we're not a huge fan of Peppa. We've kind of kicked her to the curb and got Daniel Tiger playing in the house. I got my problems with him though too. But we just play and act goofy with the kids. Yeah. And Michelle's pretty good about acting goofy too.
Yeah.
She actually says laughing is her religion.
Yeah.
So we try and laugh a lot in our house.
Yeah. And I would pass along the marriage advice to folks that you, like husband and wives, have got to laugh. Mm-hmm. Like gotta laugh, and when you stop laughing, that's when like the real problems start coming up.
That's good advice.
Yeah, just like during the good times, laugh. During hard times, find something to laugh at.
Sure.
Because life can get hard, life can get heavy, and Laughing's important.
That might be the best advice I've ever heard you share. And you've shared a lot of good advice.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. Number 12.
Yeah.
I will write with honesty and feeling. Credit to Ted Nicholas. The opinion of others does not matter. What matters is the number of people that I can help by sharing advice and encouragement in my writing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this is, the book that you're reading from is my most controversial. Some people have started reading it with a lot of resistance. I think that I've won most of them over in the book with the logic and the explanations and the stories. And you know what? I knew that some people were not going to like this. It's funny. Bedros hasn't said anything to me about this book, so I'm not sure what he thinks about it. But I'm sure he has no problem with it. But you know what? This story needed to be told, and I had to write this book, so that's what I did.
Yeah, I love it. You said in here, my 12 rules have made me much happier and have eliminated much of the stress in my life. Is that still true
because
to this day?
I think it goes with the Stoic philosophy, control the internals because you can't control the externals. And a lot of that stuff, I wrote those at a time where I was learning that, and I was learning control what you can, cope with what you can't control, and concentrate on what counts. Because, what really brought me stress in life as a young man was probably external stuff outside of my control, like whether it was watching sports. Like I got to the point in the 90s, I couldn't watch a Cowboys game. So I used to love the Cowboys before they were good. So in 1991, when they were like 3-13 or 1-15, I had you remember those starter jackets?
Uh-huh.
I had a Cowboys starter jacket back then.
Things.
And, and then Jimmy Johnson came in and made them great. By 1996, I couldn't even watch a Cowboys game because I got so angry if they lost. And I was like, what's the point of this? This is so stupid. This is outside of my control. I had friends who were 49er fans. I couldn't be friends. This is so stupid. And so much of the stress in my life was all about external stuff. And these rules all helped me focus on, the external stuff doesn't matter, along with the Stoic philosophy and that control what you can. So I think this is really just encapsulated in control what you can and cope with what you can't control and concentrate on what counts.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things as somebody who's had a front row seat to your life the last few years and has really rubbed off on me is just caring less about things that don't really matter and just focusing more on what are the actions that I'm taking. And I think these rules, they just speak to two words: personal responsibility, that you're going to take ownership.
Yeah, and you can use the classic, what's your 85-year-old self gonna think of the stuff that you're caring about right now, and what's your 85-year-old self gonna regret, not having done, not having accomplished. And that's a good perspective because it kind of puts things in the right relation to life. And the 5 regrets are dying is a good thing to go and read. I can't remember them all right now, but it's like most people they wish they would have spent more time with their friends. They wish they would have lived a life of, according to their own rules. But I think you and I do that already. Mm-hmm. And it's just, time is going to pass very quickly, and you're going to, if you're not focusing on the right things, you're going to miss out.
I think that is a great ending point for today's podcast episode. Craig, thank you very much for that, folks. It's in this book right here, Dark Side of Discipline, darksideofdiscipline.com. Specifically pages 111 and 113 is where Craig talks about these 12 rules of life. And I would encourage you to figure out what your rules are, what your standards are. Craig, any final thoughts for the audience as we wrap up today?
I think it's going to be a little intimidating. The 12 rules thing is that I think you really need a rule around your health. You need a rule around money. You need a rule around family. You need a rule around your personal development, personal enrichment. You need a rule around dealing with others. And if you just kind of cover those categories, I think mine are a little bit redundant, and certainly there's some that maybe aren't necessary. And so I know that on the website we have a couple other versions where I have a 7-rule version and stuff like that. But just get these core philosophies because they are like the operating system on your phone, that the operating system of a phone allows it to do amazing things call Tokyo, FaceTime or something like that, because it's all rule based. And it's if this, then do that. And it's the same sort of thing with your life, that if you have operating systems, it reduces decision fatigue. It allows you to make the right decisions more automatic. It keeps you on the straight line of success. It's like, the bumpers that you put up when you take a 5-year-old bowling, and so they don't get gutter balls. And it's really about avoiding the unforced errors and the catastrophic consequences that come from doing stupid things. And if you can put that into place and have that operating system, you'll achieve success with a whole lot less stress.
Awesome stuff. Folks, thank you so much for joining us this week on Early to Rise Radio. My name is Galel Fajardo. My host today has been my guest has been the normal host, Mr. Craig Ballantyne. And to learn more about Early to Rise in our coaching program, visit earlytorise.com/coaching and fill out an application to see what it would be like to work with a coach, and you can adapt some of these systems and discipline in your life, in your business, to be able to live the life that you truly, truly want. Thanks so much for watching, folks. We'll see you next week.